Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience episode number 515. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Our next guest embodies resilience and innovation as a serial entrepreneur, technology expert, and real estate investor with over a decade of experience in IT, business strategy, and entrepreneurship. Welcome, Dominque Perira.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Richards, for having me.
I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business ventures?
Perfect. I was born in Angola, Africa, and it was a Civil War torn time in the early 90s, or really to start the decade. And I was fortunate through the efforts of my parents to be raised in Philadelphia, PA. And my father always instilled in us that we were able to get out because of his education and because of the opportunity that afforded. It literally saved my life, if not my family's as well. So growing up with that immigrant mindset of the importance of education, the importance of resilience, and really that nothing will be given to you. You have to work for it. Now, with that blessing and a benefit, also came the hardship of being here as an undocumented immigrant. So I was not the most welcomed of guests, as I would come to find out later with politics changing, especially in the early 2000s after 2001. And that affected everything from getting health insurance, getting into schools, and really started coming about when I was going into college, because I wasn't qualifying for FAFSA grants or any sort of state or federal funded programs, especially. While I was in college, and I didn't have working papers, so I couldn't really get a job, which for me was a little bit difficult growing up with, my friends getting the jobs at Wendy's and McDonald's. And every time I came for my application, I was always missing something. And I always chalked it up to my parents as telling, just focus on school. We'll help pay for this and that, right? Like, you're not getting name brand sneakers, but you have something on your feet. So just be grateful about that. But you need to focus on school. When I got into college, the shift for me started when I started to realize, okay, you are going to be able to break into these rooms if you are exceptional. You don't have to have everything in order, but if you are exceptional, we grew up speaking 4 languages in the household. We came from an engineering background, so I was fascinated with that and got into early engineering programs. And there are some programs that were available and accessible to me, even in that situation, that companies then figured out a way to get me to work with them. Like, hey, we'll use that talent, we'll use those resources. And even Verizon at the time needed some young translators, and somehow I landed the job as an executive translator just because I was able to relate and I had a technical experience in that particular department. Needed young people that knew technology, and I was going to school for computer engineering at the time, that spoke these very specific languages. And I was like, wow, I'm amazed how somebody at the executive level figured out how to get me in. Even though throughout my life I had these challenges. Same thing came along. Now it's getting through college. I started working to pay off for school. And even though it was a little bit difficult getting a job, I started my own technology company, just doing websites because I love that and design. Doing these websites, companies were paying my company now, and friends and families, everybody who had a small store, hey, Dom, can you do a website for me? So $500 here, $1,000 there, then it grew. And I started seeing that I can create my own path. I didn't have to rely on ingrained notions of thought in my situation. So my company, as I was in college, Global Computers and Networks, started growing so much that towards my last year, I was being told I need to do an internship for my program. Let them know, hey, I'm growing my own company. Why am I going to put this to work for free for somebody else to prove to them this and that? And I wasn't able to get hired at Microsoft. I remember even Lockheed Martin. Now I can talk about it. Lockheed Martin, they wanted to hire me early on. And when I had background issues, this with visa and everything, there's we can't really make it work. Fast forward, now I'm doing contracts with Lockheed Martin or doing contracts with my company with the government. We became a government contractor. So my professors, some of them really were supportive in that and saying, okay, we're going to allow you to have this practical real world experience without diminishing your entrepreneurial vision. And from there, we started doing this projects with small and mid-sized businesses and managing their IT and networks, and especially web design and application development. We became one of the larger, small business still, but partners with companies like Starbucks. If you live in the Northeast area, PA, New Jersey, I've probably installed the Wi-Fi in the Starbucks that you're drinking. Or Banana Republic and Gap Group, we managed their stores. So we were the boots on the ground for their national teams. And I started to realize that because I was so hungry, because I knew that nothing was certain, I would take these contracts. Sometimes I wasn't making a lot of money, but I would just give it 1000%, just because nothing was guaranteed. I was almost living on, here on borrowed time because I never knew when my card was going to get pulled, so to speak, literally, figuratively too. And from there, we just started getting recommended. We never had to advertise. We were getting recommended to work with larger and larger projects until we started doing government contracts. Once I got into the world of government contracts, I started understanding the value that we can provide to the government. They started figuring out how to remove the barriers that were previously there for me. And from there, we expanded. We moved our operations from the Philadelphia area to Austin, Texas, because of a couple business opportunities there. And in Austin, I realized through various things, okay, we're growing as a company, but there were some challenges coming from just learning how to run a business myself. There's challenges in growth. I started sometimes resenting the amount of work that I had to do and not seeing the end result as far as the net income, your equity rich, cash poor, sometimes when you're running your business. So I'm seeing my employees that are doing better at the end of the month than I am. And I didn't really figure out how to completely navigate that. I didn't have all of that in line. But there was a situation where we had a couple clients, one of our larger clients that went bankrupt. And unfortunately, we were over leveraged with their invoices, and they owed us a couple $100,000 in outstanding invoices. And now they're trying to get us to buy it at a couple cents on the dollar and consolidate their debt. And that was just, existential for us. And because I had to pay my employees, they were already paid. This is work from months or weeks ago. And now I'm trying to recoup and getting lawyers involved. All these costs are coming out to me out of my pocket, where it almost seemed foolish of me to even let myself get into that situation. And hindsight's being 2020, it seemed like a good idea. Hey, they've been late before, but they paid, so let's just keep doing the work. They'll figure it out. Let's keep doing the work. Until they didn't. And now it's my job to figure it out. So once we did resolve that, and we did fortunately figure it out just by being resilient and knowing that I couldn't let one company, one greedy CEO harness everything that I've worked for, then I decided, well, I'm never going to put myself in a situation where I only have one pillar anymore, because that's where the issue was. I was relying too heavily on that client. I was relying too heavily on that sector. So when I was in Texas, we were in Austin, Texas. I moved there. I was staying in an Airbnb and an apartment. I was trying to find where our next growth operation was, because even though I love Philadelphia, I understood that the growth of a Black technology firm, the infrastructure wasn't there to really see my vision flourish, whether it's the networks, whether it's the enterprises that were available to me. And we went to California, met up with investors, met up with other people there. And I didn't like the startup culture in San Francisco, where everybody's a entrepreneur and a lot of people aren't making money. They just have a company for the sake of having a company and that. So Austin became our home base. And that's how I got into some of our other ventures in real estate as well, when I saw that there was an opportunity in Austin. But that's kind of the start of my diversification into some of the serial entrepreneur aspects of what I do.
And speaking of that, and thank you for sharing about you need multiple streams of income. Out of all the serial entrepreneurial journeys that you have taken, what do you find is trending right now for you?
What I'm seeing is trending for the people that I speak with, because I do have, my name is Dominque Perira. And because of my experiences, I created an online persona to really start reaching out to people and doing a little bit of financial literacy and entrepreneurial literacy and talking to people under AskDomThat. That's the moniker or whatever that you can find me on social media, AskDomThat. Because if you have a question, just ask Dom right? And when people are asking me questions about their entrepreneur small businesses, what I'm seeing is people really want fast results. We overestimate what we can do in 1 year, and people have a short time horizon. This year, I want to grow my nail salon, or I want to start growing, scale my nail salon or my event business. There are a lot of fly by night things, and there's a lot of over leveraged businesses. Whether if you follow your financial journey strictly on Instagram, TikTok, and get all your knowledge in 1 minute increments, just know that there is a lot that you're missing. If you don't have the propensity to sit down, read, and really comprehend, then entrepreneurship might not be for you. Because if you could only take information in 1 minute doses, there's going to be long-term problems. And the reason that is because what I'm seeing from a lot of young entrepreneurs, especially in the Black community, is that there is somebody that becomes successful in an industry. In my case, it's real estate. I can't tell you in 1 minute how I did it, but I'll tell you the results. I tell you the blah, blah, blah. But please don't go out and get a $500,000 loan and then try to figure it out later, right? A lot of people in our community are over leveraging their credit, over leveraging their resources to get into a business that inevitably it's going to fail. And it's not because it's a bad industry, but the execution is poor.
What is advice you wish you had followed?
Wow, advice I wish I had followed. That's a great one. I would say I wish I had followed the advice to slow down a little bit more. I work at a very fast pace, and at times that's to my benefit because it's fell fast, right? Like fell early, fell fast, and that's great. But when you're doing so much, you're just kind of you're the only one making these decisions. You feel like you're in this echo chamber and you're in a world by yourself because your employees don't understand your frustration. You're looking at people. I remember having employees that I just met with my bookkeeper and I'm seeing how our accounts aren't doing as great as I would like. And then my next meeting is with one of my managers that works for me that's going to ask me for more money, right? And because he's having a baby and I feel obliged to help out because they're buying into my vision. And now my head automatically starts thinking, how do we make more income? How do we make more income? What's the next? So I might get into a project that I shouldn't have instead of slowing down. And on top of that, really partnering with people more. As an entrepreneur, I think the biggest fault that I've had is taking the journey by myself and being timid and allowing people to trust me in leading the journey. And I think if I would have taken that advice from some people that are larger than me, I've spoken with some very wealthy people that say, hey, you need investors, so to speak, right? You need to add value to other people if you really want to scale. And when that thought comes to mind, now I understand it better than 5, 6, 7 years ago.
And a question that I wanted to ask, you talk about being undocumented. How did you resolve that?
Yes, for me, it was actually a convergent path. I came here in 1996, just about. And we were fortunate because in 2001, September 11th, 2001, a lot of things changed for the immigrant population here in the country just because of obviously the Patriot Act and the event that came, September 11th. So what that allowed me to do is have some level of documentation already because I did, even though it was expired, it wasn't. So I started to realize how much my life depended on just the good graces of the person I was dealing with that day. Getting the driver's license took me a lot of tries because I would go to the DMV and that person wouldn't accept that documentation. But I just kept going to different DMVs and somebody was like, man, like you're caught in the crosshair between your application was in the process and somebody didn't understand, so they dropped it. And that speaks to the resilience where you will get denied so many times. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't feel pity. I had to cross state lines. I hope that's not federal crime, but I had to cross state lines and like, okay, this state is better for me. They have policies. You have to just read. And there's a reason why there are pockets of immigrants in this country for certain things, is because there's more favorable circumstances in some cases. And then you start to realize that you're not alone. You have to start asking people how they resolve that issue. And eventually you start realizing, oh, okay, this city allows you to use this documentation to get your driver's license. Okay, now you have your driver's license. This city allows you to use this driver's license to get temporary working permit in the city. Oh, wow, great. So I went that route and utilizing the early documentation that I had to compound on getting into a legal status. And then as I was making more money, I could start affording an immigration attorney to start advising me on the way forward. Ultimately, though, and this is where the converging paths were, because I'm still on this journey. I'm no longer undocumented. I do have a level of legality in this country. I'm not a citizen, but my path originally, the reason that I really dove into entrepreneurship was because I forgot the name of the program. The viewers can look it up if this is their particular situation, but there's a program in the country that if you invest over $1 million in this country, you have a pathway to legalization and citizenship. Once I knew that, I was like, I need to make $1 million. And that's kind of all right. I started that, I did that, and then there's other complications towards it. But and then my wife is a citizen. She was born and raised here. So we did get married, and that definitely facilitated my path. But I was pursuing the finances. And right now we're having this interview, and there's a trepid political system, to say the least, right now, and environment. But one thing that came out that struck my ears is Donald Trump right now mentioned, hey, we're going to offer this $5 million gold card to people. Whether that falls for me, and it's not practical for so many immigrants in this country right now or abroad. It's not practical. But what the message is this country cares about money. Right? Like financial independence can get you to rooms and places that were seemingly closed off to you. And I knew that. I understood that early on. How I was able to get my financial documentation is because we started doing millions of dollars in government contracts. Actually, we had a contract with the United States Border Patrol, and it was interesting to me because I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to go on site, but I'm going to send my employees there. And we had a contract with the military bases and everything. And I eventually, once we were adding so much value, I was like, hey, I'm having this problem. And they ran up the chain of, no, we can get that resolved for you. We were passing background checks, and I've never been in trouble. So that certainly helped. And just being elevated in what I offer, and whether it's application development, cybersecurity, all of these things to the government fast-tracked me a little bit.
Thank you for that. If you lost everything, Dom, and you had to rebuild in 30 days, what industry and why?
Technology, and in particular, B2B applications. The first thing, if you lost everything, you hopefully haven't lost the knowledge and the experiences that you have. Without anything else, you should retain that. You, however old you are, have to appreciate what you have learned so far and be observant in the problems that other people have. Whether that's you working at McDonald's and saying, hey, look, I'm not going to be here forever, but start thinking about how you can make McDonald's a little bit more efficient from your position. The industry that I would create a very specific solution to a industry problem. For example, we do application development. So something that this might look like is a lot of businesses and a lot of our business clients want to better track the efficiency of their workforce and their employees. And they don't know how to do that. They're paying somebody for 8 hours. There are a lot of remote workers. They don't know if they're really working 8 hours. Okay, there's software out there already that help with this, but it might not be specific to accounting firms, right? Like if you're owner of an accounting firm, how can I track my other accountants that are working on it? I would create a just a web page, a splash page, or a Figma design, and just say, hey, if you have an accounting firm and you would like to X, I am signing up for this for a free demo for early access on this program. And it does X, Y, and Z, utilizing this type of AI, because you have to throw in emerging technology right now. And then just run that and start making phone calls and say, hey, we're offering this program. If you're in technology, can I get you a demo? Great. You haven't built it yet. But the reality is there are a lot smarter people out there than I am and than you are, figuratively speaking, that if you can understand the problem that you're solving and you can say, hey, look, we signed up 10 technology companies and we signed up one really big company that's having this problem because they have 1,000 employees and they know that they're losing 30-40% productivity. Now you start asking, what's your budget for something like this? What's your budget for this type of software as we get ready to launch in 8 months, 7 months, whatever the case is? All of a sudden, now you have an understanding if the product that you're offering is something that is needed or wanted by the industry that you're offering it before you invest the money of building it and producing it. And if you make those phone calls, if you solve the problem of sales, because in business, sales solves a lot of problems. If you have comprehensive and consistent sales, you will solve a lot of problems. And if you can solve that before you figure out how to build the product, well, then your problem shifts. The problem starts becoming, hey, I have this list of people who told me that they're interested in this and told me what their budget is. And I don't think people fully appreciate, and here's one thing that I didn't know, how much companies pay for software and how big these budgets are relative to what you and I just spend on a daily basis. I mean, because we're talking about a company that might pay for software that we build $50,000 a month, $10,000 a month. And those numbers to me starting out were just, I started to realize why we were getting hired so fast. I mean, people weren't even making counter offers. I'm putting out a number and I'm timid to put out like, hey, we charge you 10,000 to build that. They're like, yes, yeah, please. And now we're like, oh yeah, $10,000 a month in licensing is normal. So once you have that information from potential clients, then you solve the next problem of actually building it out. But that's, again, a different problem because now you can start looking at getting investors. You can start looking at getting a loan if you want to retain your equity because you know that these guys have a pre-commitment to buy the product that you're building.
Now, did you get investors?
I didn't. No, I own 100% of the company. Actually, what happened is, as I started my company, we were focusing on application and website development. I approached another company that focused on the networking side of clients and working with clients because that's not something that I was really good at, constructing the network. So this smaller company, we worked together. Well, they were larger than us. We worked together and we were just doing applications and websites and they were handling all the network and everything. We ended up eventually investing in that company and buying. So I bought the company and bought out that owner. So I just owned the entire thing. But I never had an investor. Now we're getting approached by investors now quite a bit, especially as we're building out as well what our internal products are and tools. So you need to, if you're a technology company, and especially if you're a consulting company, you need to have something that goes beyond yourself. There's so many businesses, and we're seeing this a lot in the current system, that there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of solopreneurs, which is great. But when you go into a business, I really have to encourage people that they have to start planning their exit. And if you plan your exit, because it's a business, so you know that you're eventually, whether you sell or go public, whatever, you start You grow, then you exit, right? Or else somebody else is going to take it for you. Now I'm starting to understand what the best exit for us is. And part of that is having a product that goes beyond me, beyond, hey, that's the charismatic young entrepreneur that I want to work with. Oh, wait, Dom's not there anymore. So the value that your company brings isn't as appealing. And so we started building, we built out two apps internally. One of them is called Clear Social. It's a social media platform for creators with a completely clear and transparent algorithm. And it's to compete with, I don't want to even say the likes of Instagram, TikTok, they're so huge, but it's in that same realm, but focused on creators. And I hear the term Black TikTok quite a bit if you're on social media. No, it's not Black TikTok. It's a white-owned TikTok with Black users and audiences. So why don't we just create our own? And that's what we've done. And then Nemu, which is an app that helps users create videos to connect to kids in their lives. So it helps users create fun, educational, engaging videos that they can share with nieces, nephews, grandchildren, everything, so that they can become the star in those kids' lives. And we solve that. Again, these are problems that we're solving for ourselves and people that we know are having those problems, where we have so many nephews that don't recognize their uncles and aunts, but they recognize the Miss Rachels or these figures online. So we wanted to solve those problems. That's part of, just some applications that we're building internally that we can eventually look at how that can increase the valuation of our business.
Speaking of AI, when you talked about creating, if you lost everything, talk about AI today and what advice would you give those individuals that should use AI, if they need to be cautious about AI? Just give us your take on AI.
Yes. So I love when I'm hearing people speak about AI. I love it because and I don't want to come off as pessimistic, but there are always trigger words in every cycle of technology. AI is a tool, and it's a tool just like if you're a carpenter, you have a hammer, but they've been built or a drill. They've been building houses before the electric drill, right? They're using hand, they're using nails. It was taking longer, it's less efficient. But the reality is the electric drill is just a tool, but you still need to master the skill set to be a carpenter. With AI, it makes things more efficient. There are so many tools out there that are making things easier and more efficient. But it's not that you couldn't have done it before, because if take the example of somebody having a newspaper industry, a lot of people in the late 1800s made a lot of wealth in newspapers. And the reason is because the barriers to entry were a little bit harder. There weren't that many, not everybody was illiterate, first of all. So there was only a couple people that had the ability to read, write, and process the information. But if they wanted to get information from the battlefield or whatever, they needed to send somebody on horse and carriage, get that information. Hopefully they come back alive, put it on the press. Now, before I don't know the nuances of the newspaper industry, but, run it over press and repeat it. And, you have these guys sweating and a secretary in the office writing and, fact checking and all this and that. And then print it. Now it's printed. Now you have the product. Now you have the distribution and the logistics. Having a young kid on a bicycle going out and leaving it. We can't leave it at every door because they're paid subscriptions. So who's paid, who's not? And people made a lot of money off of that. Now, they thought that this was probably revolutionary when they came out with the printing press. It's like, this is the golden age of newspaper. This is easy. Now you bring that same entrepreneur to before the AI ecosystem kind of really took off 3 years ago, bring them to the early 2000s. He's going to say, wow, you guys have telephones that can take pictures and videos from the battlefield. You don't have to send a horse and carriage. You can talk to somebody wirelessly. Oh my gosh, you have, before you guys have encyclopedias that gave you all the information that can tell you about the history, where before it was just really for the elites in the libraries. Then there's this internet thing. These are all tools, and these probably flabbergasted that people still aren't capitalizing on If I started my news industry or my distribution, my network distribution of information right now, these tools that you have would make it so much more efficient for me to do what I had to do the hard way. And that was before AI. But what we know about our community is if you don't value that, if you don't value the result and the work, then the tool doesn't matter. All right. Because anybody who wanted to start a blog, I did start a blog early on. Well, the internet was already out there. Okay, you had to rewrite some stuff, but the resources were there. The same thing with AI. AI is a tool, and you can get very excited about this tool right now, but don't let it fizzle out because unless you master the craft of that tool and then decide, okay, I am going to do this to create a distribution network of educational videos because now the resources that I have to put in, the time input is a lot less, then yes, you can, well, if you decide to do that, then yes, you can capitalize. But what we found time and time again in history is that there is somebody, and there's a reason why there's so many, sometimes first generation immigrants and sometimes people coming up in disenfranchised communities that is self-made millionaires or billionaires. I think most billionaires are self-made, is because they just understand, oh, wow, I am now given a resource that I never thought possible. And I didn't even think that I would ever get the opportunity to utilize this. So I am going to take it to the fullest. And that's how we have, hate it or love it, Fox News, Rupert Murdoch, Australian immigrant that came here and said, what, free speech, right? And you can propagate news and information or disinformation, whatever you want to call it. Wow, let me utilize everything that this country has to offer to move it forward. Same thing with AI. There are so many tools and resources that you can use to advance some cause, but you have to master it. You have to learn it. And don't learn the basics of it. You have to master it because there's a lot of people in just the gradient of, okay, I know how to use ChatGPT for the basic stuff. Last thing I will say on this, companies pay for excellence and they pay a lot of money for it. If you can master just a specific thing about AI, whether it's whatever the modality is, whether it's security, safety, and compliance, whether it's using it to optimize efficiency, you master that and you will be able to sell that service to a company and sell the tools and sell the shovels for them to try to make their money in their business, whatever it is.
Dom, talk about your top 2 influencers and what lessons do they teach you?
First and foremost would be my parents, because as I expand through my businesses, recently, last year, I bought a farm. I bought a farm in New Jersey. It's a 400-acre organic farm. One of the largest, I was just actually talking to a state forester. It says one of the larger Black-owned properties in the state. That's one of the largest privately owned properties in the state. And we're trying to just really open it to the community. But that wasn't by mistake or just coincidence or, happenstance. It was because growing up, I was told by my parents about this land in Africa that they grew up in and this connection to it and this dream that one day we will be able to have that again. And through hard work and resilience, you'll be able to have it. But I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to go back and step foot on it. So I wanted to make that dream a reality in this lifetime for them. So I started working very, very, very hard early on to say, hey, look, you've told me about this small garden and plot of land that you guys grew up in and your family and your grandparents. Let me figure out how I can make that a reality in present day. And always having something to strive for is just probably the most important thing. And you see I talk to a lot of Black men, and I encourage them that you have to love something more than yourself. And whether that's your children, right, your whoever you're a caregiver for, you're a protector for, or it might be a cause. But it pushes you. It pushes you. And my parents and certainly the thought that they've sacrificed a lot, because everything that I have is really because of the sacrifice that they've made. I can't let that go to waste. That's probably my biggest influence there. As far as my second influence, I love Dr. Maya Angelou. And even though I never got a chance to meet her, just understanding her story, understanding her passion and conviction, and the lessons that she left and propagated throughout our community, making sure that you make people feel a certain way. It's not what you say. People will forget what you say, what you do. They'll never forget how you made them feel. And if they can leave an interaction from you and just say, man, I was something else. A good guy, whether it's whatever it is, it might not fully agree with me, but if you can make people feel like you care, if you can make people feel like you're engaged, if you can, and being authentic about it, you'll start to realize that entrepreneurship is just a people business. You're just needing to get around the right people and expressing your message in a well presented, coherent way and making them believe in your vision. And there's people that have made a lot more money than me or you without ever, writing one piece of code or building anything, but just because they were able to get people to believe in them.
Thank you for that. We're going to put your Ask Dom That to work in real time.
Okay. Come on in.
So the challenge is that, or I'll say the opportunity is that we do, besides the podcast, we're a media company, communications company, and we do asset inventory and documentation. So we go in the homes and we document all of your assets in the unlikely event you have a memory fade or burglary or a fire, right?
Okay.
And we also do audio family legacy recordings. And so we go in and we capture your history and your story so you can leave a legacy to your family. And we've been working, we do it for anyone, these audio and video family recordings, but we've been doing this heavy push around individuals with early stage Alzheimer's or dementia, capturing their story before their memory fade, right? And this is also safeguarding when we do the asset inventory and documentation. It safeguards the caregivers because a lot of times when individuals have early stage Alzheimer's or dementia, they think someone is stealing from them.
Yes.
So although we know that this is a service that many people need on the audio family legacy, as well as the documentation side, we were asked to do a do-it-yourself guide. So people can do asset inventory and documentation themselves, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We've done these guides and now we need to get them out to them. What would you suggest?
Oh, perfect. So thank you for asking on that. And great question, Dr. Francis Richards. So I have a couple questions for you. The do-it-yourself guide, in what format is it?
It's a ebook. It's electronic.
It's an electronic PDF that outlines. Okay, great. And the asset inventory management, just so I get a better idea, is it somebody going with a phone and taking pictures and scans of all the documentation, right?
Yes. So what we do is we will go in and do, like, we take videos of it. We will actually inventory, write out if there are specific serial numbers and locations. We put all of that into a file. So if in fact you have a fire or burglary, you can, and we put the pictures with it also and video, so you'll know where it's located in the unlikely event you have a fire, burglary, or memory fade. And we do have, so we customize it for whatever it is. We will do like barcodes if that's what you want done.
Okay, great. And so your question is how to distribute the do-it-yourself guide to your clientele.
Right, to the masses. It's been asked in terms of when you're doing it for you or doing it with you. Of course, it can be a higher price tag on it. So individuals were like, okay, I just want to do it myself. So we ended up putting this guide together. And what we did on the guide is we ended up with 4 different guides. So if in fact you are married with children, there's a guide. If you're widowed, there's a guide. If you've never had any children, there's a guide, because we also go into, and we're not attorneys, but we're also giving you documents that you need in the unlikely event ensuring that you have not only all your documents together, but what are those legal documents that you need to have together? Say, for instance, if you have a child, an adult child that's disabled, do you have all of these documents in case you do pass away? So we go into like some end of life things with our do it yourself guide.
Okay, perfect. So understanding that we're limited here on time, but I'm going to give you at least a preliminary what I'm thinking. First thing that I would do is, and you may already know this, but first thing I would do is I would research long tail and short tail keywords on Google using Google Analytics and start researching what words people are using when they're in this situation. You are solving a problem for them. What are they searching, right? Like family history documentation, my parents have dementia or Alzheimer's. So start searching for that. Great. Then with that, I would create a simple landing page and just very comprehensive page saying you may be looking for this. You are solving this problem, whether it's, and there's a lot of problems that you are solving right now. And this is just one page, and just outlining, here's something that you might not be thinking of. The memories and legacy that your loved one has will inevitably fade, unfortunately. So let's review this guide that we have. And it's a downloadable link, right? Downloadable link that you can do here. You can click here to understand the guide. To download it, just provide me with your email, phone number, and we'll send it to you in an email. Now you're capturing some data there, and you're understanding that these people are coming from, I would run a campaign also. There is something called geofencing. Geofencing is software that allows you to run ads based on, unfortunately, everybody has their location turned on their phone. And what I would do is you can select even building addresses. I would pick a state that is, like, call it Florida, because we just know it's a high retirement community. And people that are known to be in or at this address, which are facilities that would typically house early onset dementia or even clinics, right? Like, so because you want to really target, you want to make sure that you're targeting an audience that needs your service. And now the last thing that I would do is, I have these addresses, I've put them into my geofence ad network. I know you have the PDF, but I personally, you do some great camera work here. I always emphasize to my clients, get on camera, because you have a trusting face. People have a distrust of when people are trying to sell us something, because there's so many scams out here. But if I can relate to you, if I can see in your eyes that there is an empathy there, that you're genuinely trying to solve a problem for me, and whether that accounts to a monetary benefit for you or not, that's okay, because I'm willing to pay for the service. But I don't know if you're just a big corporation trying to scam me out of something. So I would do a very basic introductory video, just saying, my name is Dr. Francis Richards, or whoever is the principal party there. Here's the problem that we're trying to solve. You landed here because you may have this problem. Here's a guide that we offer. It's down below. You can click the link or send this link to somebody that may be in this position. And if you are a loved one, a parent, a spouse of this person, we go over the importance of documenting deeds and mortgages. You start, because you want to make sure that you don't lose what they've worked for, photos. And we also go over some basic, set up your phone. Here's some questions that you want to ask, and I don't know the guide per se, but you want to ask of your parents, of your loved ones, before their memory completely fades. And that way you keep some family history and so forth. Lastly, what I would do, and I'm trying to think this out, because that distribution network is strictly online with a web page, because a lot of people in their moment of agony, I'm a director at a law firm as well, they don't want to talk to people all the time. They're in sorrow, they're in pain, they're in confusion, but they don't necessarily want to keep expressing that sorrow or trauma to multiple companies, right? So if you can answer that question for them. Lastly, what I would do is, one thing that I'm learning to do more is partnering. You may already know the journey to early onset Alzheimer's or dementia doesn't just start right away. Right? It has progressions. And if you're offering something of value, then what I would do is I would start talking to doctors and neurologists that specialize in this. And pharmaceutical companies, for example, have mastered this, right? Like maybe to not so great, but these doctors are prescribing things that these pharmaceutical companies are pushing down their throats and incentivizing. But for you, you can start talking to a neurologist, go into conventions, go into where they are. It's a small group of people. Say, hey, we offer this to people that will come to you with this condition. As long as it doesn't violate any HIPAA or their professional practices, then of course it's a resource that you'll start realizing that there's these doctors that say, oh, wow, this is really a great product. Or they'll tell you, no, this is not practical, right? Because I deal with these people every day, and here's really what we're hearing. So it allows you to modify your offering a little bit. But once you have it, you're adding value to somebody else's business. You're going to scale immensely by saying, because they don't have to do anything. They just have to say, I'm sorry you're going through this. Here are the next steps. Here's what you can expect. But here's also something that might help you. And they give them the information and or brochure. But because the environment right now is so video centric, and that's everything. I mean, just imagine how much Coca-Cola is paying for commercials and every large company. People are used to receiving information via video. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. I would encourage you to watch a video because it's a passive learning experience for people versus an engaged learning with reading. And people typically take the engaged learning on the second, once they've made the decision that they will commit to it. Once they made the decision that they'll commit to it, now I can read the article in the PDF. But I need to be able to go on your YouTube and understand passively why this is important and what, okay, wow, there, I didn't realize that this, and that. And from there, I think really having a basic link and just capturing their information on, and you can decide what information is valuable to the business as far as email, address, right? Like you may want address because different states may require, different needs, and I don't know if it's a broadly national, but that's probably where I would start. And like I said, if we talk about it a little bit more, it's a living conversation that we can probably develop out.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And I love that interactive, real-time solution. Dom, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
What are you afraid of? And yeah, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of being, I'm afraid of wasting this life. I'm afraid of looking back and regretting that I didn't do something or that I went down this entrepreneurial path and was too headstrong. I know so many people that became financially successful, but just poor morally and family relations and everything. So it's interesting. Being an entrepreneur is an interesting journey because it's very anxiety inducing. Even when we have really good months, I still get anxiety. I'm like, can we duplicate that? Can we? So I'm like, wait a minute. If you're a believing person, you may say, wow, I prayed to God for success. I got it. Now I'm nervous about it. Or now can I believe that I can succeed in the challenges that were presented to me. So what are you afraid of is a question that I tend to ask myself.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions and I want you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
Yes.
What is your favorite comfort food?
Soul food, macaroni and cheese. I love ribs, sweet potatoes.
The last movie you saw?
Last movie I saw, I don't remember. It was a documentary on Netflix about the universe.
You relax doing what?
Writing. I love to write.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
My favorite rapper right now, J. Cole.
Your favorite dance song?
Anything salsa. I love salsa. So yeah,
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Omelets, scrambled eggs.
Work out or hit the couch?
Couch, unfortunately.
Dom, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and do business with you. And feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Richards. It was an absolute pleasure. If anybody has any questions, just go to any social medias and check out Clear Social and AskDomThat. And that is all my handles on all social medias.
Thank you, Dom. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.